Yum! So looking.
Everyone, my name is Chef Stephanie Chinchilla. I am the host of Culinary Culture Podcast. And today we have Vince here from V is for Vino. Welcome, Vince.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you.
Can I ask you, is Chinchilla a stage name or is it your actual last name?
I wish. No, it's actually my last name. My husband is half Mexican, half Costa Rican, and
Okay.
Dad's Costa Rican.
It's a good name. It's one you won't forget.
It's such a good name. My maiden last name was Penny, so it was handy too, but for a long time I was called Chef Penny. So when I didn't really go by my first name. So when we got married, it took a while to transition over to using my normal name again, since I'm not Penny anymore.
Yeah.
It is a cool last name. People always ask me that when we're like at the store in the market. They're like, "Is that your actual last name?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's."
Yeah, it's good branding, just built right into your names. So.
I know, right? Why not? Okay, so to start, we're gonna play a fun game. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna say a couple things, like maybe a sentence or a question, and then just give me a quick short word answer that comes to your head, whatever it is first. Are you ready?
All right.
Okay. Fred Dom.
Oh, Sam.
Favorite meal ever?
Nice, south of France, pizza and little cafe.
Yeah. Ooh, jealous. I haven't been there yet. Wine tasting system. What's your thoughts on the wine tasting rating system?
Ratings?
Mm-hmm.
Grain of salt.
Grain of salt. Favorite wine ever?
I hate that question.
I know.
I hate that question. If you make me pick, I'd probably say Old Rioja, but we'll get into a deeper answer, I guess, as we talk.
I'll take it. I understand. I'll explain why later also. Favorite wine region in France?
Loire Valley.
Loire Valley. Nice. Favorite cheese?
A super triple cream brie style.
I'm with you on that. Port wine.
Port wine, love it.
Love it.
Totally underrated. Totally underrated. Amazing value.
100% agree. White or red?
Can't pick that. Depends on meeting. Depends on meeting.
Picking a favorite child, right? Not fair.
Yeah, I'm equal opportunist. That's why I don't like the favorite wine question either, because it just depends what I'm eating.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, Vince, can we get started with you telling a little bit about us? He has the #1 rated show on Amazon Prime. Congratulations. Wine rated show. That is super, super exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your journey with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started the show maybe 4 years ago now. The show, I tell people, it's kind of a cross between Bourdain meets Alton Brown. So we go to the wine region, you learn about the grapes, you meet people in the wine region, usually a winemaker. We cook dishes that pair with the wines that we're talking about on the show. And then we also just explore wine topics. So kind of wine basics, wine 101 topics. That even, I say wine 101, but I have people who have even watched it who may be a little more experienced, and they usually find things to take away from it too. But yeah, I started it, I came out to Los Angeles maybe 10 years ago. I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, but so did everybody else. So I did that for maybe 5 years. And as I was fading out of that, I was getting into wine. And I had a couple mentors in the industry that kind of pushed me to, go for the certification, take my test. And so I did that, and it was fine for me. I didn't mind it. It was a lot of studying, and flashcards, and it's really intense. If anybody's seen the documentary, I'm not at that level, but it's the same type of test. It's blind tasting, theory, and service. And that's great for me. I mean, I was working in the restaurant industry at the time, but what if you didn't want to do that? What if you wanted to understand wine better, but you didn't want to actually go do something at formal? And all the stuff that was out there was, one of two things. There was a couple wine shows that I thought were just a little too high level, and didn't really, they weren't fun, organic. And then there was guys in front of their webcams on YouTube, but nobody was breaking down the basics of wine while also combining it with the place and the travel and the food, because to me, that is wine. Other beverages, beer and spirits, yeah, they may be tied to a place, but I could, I always say I could get the ingredients to Guinness and get really close to making it here in America. But wine, you can't do that. It's tied to the place it comes from. And so I wanted to make a show that would combine all those elements and make it fun and easy to learn wine, and also just a fun travel show in case you're not looking to get too serious about it. You just want to understand the people behind the label.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't already seen his show on Amazon, it is really, really a good watch. You have to go watch it. It's I think it's very educational. It's super interesting. I love all the places that you go and all the people you're meeting. If you're like even if you're not, but if you're a foodie and you love wine, you're going to want to go on there and watch it. It's very good. It's not #1 rated on Amazon Prime for no reason. That's exciting. Cool. What was your first bottle of wine that made you, you said that there was, people who kind of encouraged you to do it, but was there a particular bottle of wine that you tasted that you were like, that won you over for wine?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you two, because one, I don't know the specific bottle, but I was in Bordeaux, France when I was in college. I lived in France for 6 months when I was there. And I was at a family friend's house, and I told them I kind of liked wine. This is before I did any training. I didn't know anything. And their family brought out some sort of Bordeaux from their cellar. And for the life of me, I wish I knew what it was, because I'm sure it was some amazing first growth that was, 20 years old. But I didn't know at the time, but I had it, and it blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about this. And so that was kind of my big aha wine moment. But then another one, I'll give you a second answer just because it's more specific, is I'm a huge fan of Chenin Blanc, because I love the way how versatile it is. That can be done sparkling, still, dry, off dry, or sweet. And the first time I had, I believe it was a Domaine Huet Chenin Blanc, and an older vintage too, because it taught me that also white wines can age. It was like this really amazing moment, like, oh my gosh, look at how amazing this one grape can be. And so that was kind of one of my aha wines as well.
Aha favorite?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if I could do favorite, but it was, it was,
your moment.
Yeah.
It was your moment.
Yeah, my moment.
What wine country would be your favorite? What is your thoughts on your absolute? You said
it's
Loire.
Got to be France. It's got to be France. I know that's not the most exciting answer. That's not the sexiest answer, but they're just, I always say they're the Beatles of the wine world. Everything that we do in the modern world and everywhere around the globe was pretty much modeled off the French way. And then dollar for dollar, you can still find a lot of value in France, even though a lot of places have such famed reputations. They make so much wine, and it's such an important part of their culture that they subsidize it as well. And so dollar for dollar, you can still get really, really amazing wine and anything you would want. Like if you're asking like country, like they make everything, every style. So you can really live there forever and you'd be fine.
Yeah. My husband and I did Bordeaux. We did France last summer, and we went to a variety of places in Europe, but we did Bordeaux. And I think we both agree that it's probably our favorite place we have ever been.
Bordeaux specifically?
Yeah, we are obsessed.
I'm supposed to be there right now filming. we got postponed, but yeah.
Yeah, it was such an amazing experience. Of course, if you love, wine and food, it's just going to be like your heart's going to be into it. It's one of the best places. We loved everywhere we went. Everyone was super friendly. The food everywhere was delicious. Their transportation system was incredible. A lot of people have told me it's kind of like an easier Paris. Like Paris is cool, but like Bordeaux is just a lot more accessible. It's cheaper. It's, I think it's better. I think it's a better experience. Just personally, we did Paris too. I didn't actually really enjoy Paris that much. I think I probably would have had a better experience, like a different experience had I gone with somebody, of course, who lived there, things like that. But we didn't, that wasn't the case. We just traveled on our own. But in Bordeaux, it just wasn't quite the same. Maybe because it's not so busy, it's not as big of a city. But we had the best experience. We went took a train to Saint Emilion for the day as well. And I think that was probably our favorite day of the whole trip. Yeah,
you're making me very sad that I am not there right now.
I'm sorry. You'll be back. So will we. So will we. What about, what's your thoughts on Old World versus New World? I know that France is your favorite, but what's your thoughts on the difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think if people can at least understand the importance of that, I don't really care what you like or another. There's styles of wine that I'm not in love with that people love, and that's all they drink. So, like style-wise, there's a big difference. And if people can just understand, my number one wine tip when people ask me what's your number one wine tip is drink off the place, not off the grape, because it's as, if not more important than the grape. I mean, you know this if you're into wine, but if you're not into wine, if I gave you a Cabernet from Napa, Northern California, big, rich, oaky, jammy, extracted Cabernet, and then I gave you one from Bordeaux, France, they're not going to taste like the same grape. They're complete opposite ends of the spectrum. The Napa one's going to be that big ripe. It's going to be 15+% alcohol. The Bordeaux is going to be lean. It's going to be acid driven. It's going to taste like the dirt it came from. It's going to be like 15% alcohol. So my whole thing is like just understanding that that's what's going to make the wine you like something you like, and then drinking more from that region. So when people come up and they say, when you're ordering wine, start saying that this is, I'd like a Chardonnay from Santa Barbara, or I'd like a Chardonnay from Northern California, or I'd like a Chardonnay from Burgundy, rather than just saying I want a Chardonnay, because you have a much better chance of getting something you're going to enjoy.
Yeah. I like to tell people that when they're kind of deciding what they like, if they want to do something fun with their friends, to purchase, let's say, get 8 different bottles of the same varietal, all from different places, and then do a tasting together at home.
Yeah.
And you
100%.
can really see of the same varietal, though, not different ones, just so that in one seating you can taste the difference of them side by side. I think it's a fun way to, and actually efficient way to kind of see, what you like from what.
And you touched on something that I always is my other tip for new people in wine is, you get, when people are starting in wine, they're always like, it tastes like wine. This tastes like red wine. It tastes like every red wine I've had. And I'm like, well, are you tasting side by side? Or are you having one wine today and one wine tomorrow? You have to taste side by side, because you will not think that way anymore. For sure, if you taste side by side, that all wine tastes like red wine. But it's hard to put that in your brain, especially when you're first starting. As you get more familiar, I can pick out things, but when you're first starting, gotta taste with other wines.
Yeah, and even people I feel like who aren't interested in becoming, like they're like, hey, listen, I love wine and I enjoy wine, but I don't want to really like do much with it. I don't need to learn a ton, but you still need to learn. It's important to learn what you like. So the best way to do that is to taste them side by side, so you can decide for yourself what you like, and that way when you go out to eat, you know what you're ordering, and when you go to the grocery store to your wine store to pick out what you want, you have a good idea of what you actually like, and then it actually saves you money because you won't be wasting it buying bottles you don't know.
That's it. That's all I want. I just want people to get what they like. Now, that being said, I'm an equal opportunist. Like, there's no wines I really don't like in the right situation. I have stuff I go to based on, value and, what I'm eating. But, I just think the world of wine, the beauty of it is how versatile it is.
Yeah. Awesome. And I love how we're, obviously because we love it too, but I love how you're inspiring passion within other people in a very humble way that's approachable, right? A lot of people feel like within, people who are not in the foodie wine world will tend to be a little bit intimidated, or think that, wine is kind of snooty, or wine drinkers are snooty. And I'm like, no, it's totally not. And I like your very humble, approach to teaching people about wine and making them feel comfortable and not intimidated by it.
The only people who make wine inaccessible are the Psalms who do that. The winemakers, if you go wine tasting and you get to meet winemakers, not people in the tasting room, but if you get to meet the people who make the wine, they're so humble. They're farmers at the end of the day. The only people who make it like that are people who gain, and any industry will do this. You have some people who gain a little bit of knowledge and want to hover it over other people. And so that's what I, try and remember as you're learning, is that most people, and especially the winemakers, they want you to you should be able to enjoy wine the same way you would enjoy beer. Like it's really, for them, it's just something that's part of the meal. And if you go in old world in France, wine is more food than it is alcohol. It's just kind of part of the umbrella that you have meals with.
They go together. It's part of the culture.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And I love that about there. Yeah, on Friday, we're doing a live tasting with Prager,
Sure.
the winemaker from Prager and Napa Valley. And let's go to that actually, since we're discussing, I'm going into port right now, but I love their ports specifically. I mean, I like ports in general, but they specifically are who made me fall in love with port wines. I used to think, like I think a lot of other people, that I didn't enjoy them or I thought they were too sweet. And then a few years back, we went to their tasting room in Napa, and I fell in love.
Yeah, and you know, just generally port style wine, especially the stuff from Portugal. The really cool thing about it is if you like the character that comes with old developed wines, those things can be laid down for long periods of time because of the sugar, because they have the tannin structure and they have the sugar structure, and so you can get that style. And you know, it's amazing for, I always tell people, for like gifts for weddings or for, you know, having a baby or something, because it's something they can lay down for 20 plus years and have on an anniversary, and it's going to be completely fine. And it's one of those things that dollar for dollar, there's just the demand for sweet wine has just gone down over the last 20, 30 years. And so you can pick up that stuff for a good price.
Yeah, absolutely. We did, in the same trip that we did Bordeaux, we did Portugal. And I think actually although they're known for port wines, we did the Douro Valley, and I loved their rosé.
Yeah, and their still reds are lights out. Portugal is a hidden gem of the wine world for sure. I mean, if you're not messing with Portuguese wines, definitely get into it.
Yeah, you have to. They're amazingly delicious. I mean, there's one from a local place that we get a lot of our wines from called High Times, and they have some very inexpensive Portuguese wine that we are like in love with.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, once again, and that's Portugal in general too. If you go visit, I mean, you know this, if you went there, it's Western Europe and Eastern Europe prices. It won't be like that much longer because everybody's figuring that out. But if you can go in the next couple of years.
It's it is inexpensive, especially in comparison to everywhere else you go there.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Valle de Guadalupe?
Yeah, fun. It's funny you bring that up. That's another one that's on the docket for this season, and I think will still happen. I just don't know when. I don't know if it's going to be late this year or next year. But I did my first trip down there a couple months back, my first exploratory trip, and I loved it. It's a different style wine region. It is hot. It's super hot, and so the wines are big, and they're doing Nebbiolo, but in a completely different style from northern Italy a lot of the times, and so it's these big, ripe, tannin, punch you in the face, dry out your mouth wines. And I know a lot of people who love that style. Like especially a lot of American palates love that style. If you're used to kind of big Northern California wines, or even like some Paso Robles stuff. And so it's really fun for that. And the area itself is, it feels like any other wine region. Now the challenge with that is that those wines are hard to find here. And when you go down to it, you can't bring the wines back. If you're coming to California, you're only allowed to bring 2 bottles. So it's really tough. And then it's not like a winery in America where they could just ship to you, right?
Yeah.
And so wine laws, and that's a whole nother discussion we can get into, but wine laws in this country are pretty horrific. And so I hope that opens up within the next several years here.
Yeah. My husband and I, we haven't been yet, but it has been on our to-do list for quite some time, and we don't even live that far, so it's just wild that we haven't actually made it yet. But
yeah, it's only an hour past the border, an hour and a half past from San Diego. You can be there in 2 hours.
Yeah. And for those of you too who are like, oh, maybe I don't feel comfortable going 100% by myself, they have tour guides and stuff that can take you too. That's super fun, like day trips or weekend trips too. The restaurants there are fantastic. There are so many amazing chefs who have gone down there to open their restaurants. Obviously because of overhead and costs, here, a lot of them have gone down there to open their restaurants, and they're doing really, really well.
And there's people from all over the world, over the world, not just America, but you have people from places in Europe who are seeing potential. There's some Italian growers down there. And that's funny you bring up the tour. I'm going to give a shout out to my buddy. His name's Josh. His handle and his company is Taken Baja, and he does great tours down there. That's how I went. And definitely go with the tour if it's your first time and you've never done the Mexican border, for a bunch of reasons, logistics and safety. But it's just a thing you don't want to worry about your first time down there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of places that you go, for your first time, it's really helpful when you go with somebody else, and they're going to take you the places that they know are like delicious. And so you did a tour there. How long was your tour? Was it one day or multiple days?
We did an overnight. So we went one night, stayed the night, and then did a couple more things in the morning and head back up.
Gotcha. And how many wineries are you guys how many wineries do you visit while you're there usually in a
Well, this was different. I mean, when I go, I'm partially going for research. So it's not as it's fun, but it's more like we got to kind of hit, I don't know. I think we hit 5 or 6 in the first day and 3 or 4 on the way out, which is not ideal if you're trying to just enjoy yourself. It's not leisurely. But for me, I'm doing it to try and really, 1, sample the region, and 2, decide, all right, if we do an episode, who's going to be in the episode and where are we going to go?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd say in a perfect world, if you're doing wine tasting, do like 3 a day. That's enough, in my opinion, for most people. You get palate fatigue. Even if you're spitting, it's still like I don't know, past that, it starts to all taste the same.
Yeah. We usually try to only schedule 2. And part of that is we're industry. So once we go, we talk to the people who are doing our tasting, and they always try to be sweet and pour us extra, but we don't necessarily want extra. We a lot of times want to go and just like really taste the wines. And if I'm actually drinking and consuming the wines while we go on the tasting, after your second tasting, if you go to another one, you're going to be horizontal, you know?
Yeah.
So
I never drink during tastings, not only because I'm trying to stay fresh, but because to me, part of a wine country is how amazing the food is. Dinner is everywhere you go. I say we're good wine, good food will come. And if I drink during the day, I don't want any wine at night. And I want to like save that experience for evening. Yeah. So I always spit. Yeah.
We typically do. There'll sometimes be a favorite. I'm a Champs girl. I love sparkling wine. So sometimes those I drink. But when we go do the tastings, a lot of times we want to do it to really learn. And I know that's wild for a lot of people who you're like, oh, I go wine tasting because I just like to drink the wine. Try going sometimes and just do a tasting and spit out the wine so that you can kind of learn and develop your palate. It's hard to pinpoint things precisely, especially when you're learning if you've been drinking.
I mean, for me too, it's just like, I wish there's some people who are like, can drink all day and then keep going out at night. If I drink during the tastings from, you start early, you start 10, 11 a.m. till 4:00 p.m. I'm done. I'm not going to be able to last very long for dinner,
No, It's nap time. You sleep
nap
through
time.
Dinner. So. What would you say for first-time guests who are going to go taste wine? What are some tips that you would give for them to prepare accordingly?
This is so funny that you're asking this question. So I'm exploring alternative episodes to the travel episodes we normally do, because we're not going to be able to travel this year, at least not far. And I'm talking about doing this exact episode, which is 8 tips and tricks for tasting in wine country. And we're going to do it up in Santa Barbara. So I just went through a big list of these, and it's tough because I had a list of like 30 points, and I was like, well, I don't want to make it a rule book. I just want to give some tips. And so I had to kind of condense it. So spitting is a big one for me. I know some people are uncomfortable with it, but just give it a try. You'll get more out of it. What else tips? Pick a wine region based off, and we talked about this earlier, like based off the place and the style of wines you like, and go in with an open mind and don't expect them to have, I've been to wine tastings before, and I hear that people go, why don't you make Cabernet? I like Cabernet. And it's like one thing that I think people don't understand is a wine region can only make certain grapes based on the climate. And sometimes I know you'll go to a winery and they'll have everything, right? They'll have Pinot Noir, they'll have Cabernet, they'll have, Syrah, but what that probably means is that they're buying grapes from other places, in addition to maybe making their own estate stuff, but they're buying it from other regions that make those grapes better. And so go in with an open mind of like, if they don't have exactly what I like, that's okay, because I'm here to try. If you go up to Santa Barbara County, they specialize in Pinot and Chardonnay. That's it. You can find Cabernet in some of the hotter places like Happy Canyon, but most places just aren't going to have it. And if they do, it's going to be in a leaner style than what you're used to. So I would just say go in with an open mind and utilize the staff and the knowledge of the staff.
What they have to offer.
Yeah, exactly. And then try and get off the beaten path. The bigger the place, the less chance you're going to be actually talking with people who know what they're doing or have been with the company a long time. It's not to say, I'm not trying to hate on any tasting room staff, but it's like any company. The bigger it is, the more people you have to hire. Whereas if you go to smaller places, there's a chance you're going to be talking with the winemaker at least. And if not, you're going to be talking with people who are kind of close-knit community of that company. And so they know the wines in the region very well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you're saying, you don't want to diss, big, wineries that have done really well, that have developed and grown to be big. But to be honest, the best experiences I have had going and tasting have not been in large, tasting rooms that have.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that you can find those wines. Like if you can find a lot of those wines in grocery stores or wine shops near you. So if I'm in a wine region, I want to find the things that I can't find in my backyard. So the smaller you go, the more chance that happens.
Yeah, we like to buy the wines that we can't get where we're at. So whenever we go to the tasting rooms, we're like, okay, what's the stuff that it's harder to find at least for us at home. There's no point in bringing home stuff that I can get in my grocery store.
No, definitely.
My
definitely
local
100%.
wine store. Yeah, totally. And for me, to be honest, we have fallen in love with some wines based on the experience we had with the person who did our tasting.
Yeah.
We'll relate my love for the wine with the people that I met there.
Yeah, and it is funny. I mean, you definitely have that syndrome too. I think we've all done it where a wine tastes amazing in the tasting room, and then you bring it back to your living room and you're like, oh, this doesn't taste the same.
Yeah, I think that's happened once or twice, especially if you're consuming the wine. You're significantly more likely to come home with wine that you're like, oh my gosh, it was so amazing in the tasting room. And I'm like, yeah, but that's because you tasted at 3 different wineries, and then at the end of it, it's kind of hard to taste if you really.
Although I will say, my number one advice for drinking at home is you're probably not drinking your wine at the proper temperature. Tasting rooms do a really good job of having your red slightly below room temperature and your whites not far from that. If you're at home and you're doing either fridge temperature or room temperature, you're either way too cold or way too warm. And so my rule of thumb, you can get wines fridge that'll temp it perfectly, but my rule of thumb is if it's a white wine, take it out of the fridge for 30 minutes before you drink it. And if it's a red wine, put it in the fridge for 30 minutes before you drink it. And you'll get much closer to the temperature they serve at the tasting room.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. There's lots of people that we know that live somewhere. If you live somewhere where it's 100 degrees and you're leaving or 90 even, and you're leaving your red wines out and they're not in a wine fridge because you don't have one, that's no big deal. But if you do drink it at room temperature, it's not how it's supposed to be, drinking.
No,
so
it tastes cloying and heavy,
Yeah.
And the alcohol comes through if it's room temperature like that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point, actually. A good amount of never mind. I'll skip that. Say. Alrighty. Do you have any tips for people? We've been in the service industry for 17 years, so I like to always kind of give some feedback for people when they're going out to eat. Coming from you, I think this is perfect. When you go out to eat and somebody is pouring you a tasting of the wine, can you explain to everybody how they will know if the wine has been corked or not?
Yeah, and that's a big misconception. I hate to tell people don't do this or do this, but one of the things in restaurants that drives me crazy is a lot of people think that the taste is to decide if you like the wine or not. And that's not the case. The taste is once you make the selection, and that's why I definitely spend more time on the front end, making sure it's company you're going to want, because once you make that selection, you're locked into that choice. Because once the restaurant opens it, it's open. Now, a good restaurant, if you really hate the wine, will obviously not make you drink it. They'll probably take it back and try and sell it by the glass. But the taste that you get is to decide if it's corked or if it's flawed. That's what it's for. And the corked is pretty easy once you have it. Once you have corked wines once or twice, you won't forget it. It's wet cardboard is the term we use to describe it. And corked is it's called TCA. It's a I guess microbacteria that happens from real corks. So that's why screw caps are safer. And a lot of places will use screw caps, not because they're cheap, because it's safer and more consistent. Corks also breathe differently based from cork to cork, right? So we say every cork is a snowflake. So you're going to get different experiences in every single bottle of how much oxygen is being allowed into the wine. But yeah, you corked is the number one thing you're looking for, and it'll smell and taste like wet cardboard. Sometimes it's only a little corked. Sometimes it's a lot corked. And if you have it a couple times, you'll know it's there. if you have any doubt, just ask the person, oh, can you try this? Can you take it to the back and try it? I think it might be a little off. Yeah. The other flaws are a bit harder to distinguish. And even I get tricked up sometimes. Like oxidated is the number 2 one I would think that you would get. And that's if too much oxygen got in from either improper storage or maybe from temperature not being right or something wrong with the cork. And, the telltale signs of that are like kind of pruny, raisiny wine. Maybe it starts to turn like brown rather than red. But if it's an old wine, like 5-10 years or older, it's going to have that anyway. So that can be a tough one. It's like, well, is this just how the wine is? And then some grapes are more oxidative than others. Grenache is a super oxidative grape. And so like, that's one where you can have a little bit of trouble distinguishing. Like I said, any doubt, ask the som or ask one of the, the manager if the restaurant doesn't have a som. And like I said, if you really don't like something, I'm sure they'll replace it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something we just like to tell people. So this, podcast is meant for, the public and food and wine enthusiasts. And I think it's really good for them to know that the purpose of actually tasting the wine at the table is not to see if you like it. It is just to see if it is corked.
Yeah, it's corked or flawed. There's some other obscure flaws. I forget what they are, but the one that makes it smell like onion and stuff like sulfur. And there's some other obscure ones, but those happen so rarely. I've been in the industry a long time. I never find those. I only find usually corked or overly oxidated. Those are the two.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Good. Those are good tips. Can you tell us a little bit, like, do you offer any services for people? Do you do wine tastings or dinners, or can you tell us a little bit? I
mean, you were just hitting on all my points. I've had all this, change of kind of dynamic. It used to be just we're focusing on the show, but obviously we've had all this time now at home to work on other things. So one, I do offer the wines on my website for California residents and hopefully more soon. So if you like the show and you want to try the wines on the show, you can have them shipped to your door, which is really fun. Oh. Show's free. You don't have to do that. But if you want to, it's there. Wine dinners and private events, 100%. I do. Obviously, easier in California, Southern California. That's where I'm at. But I've done Arizona. I'm looking at trying to do like 2 or 3 in New York once everything opens up because I can knock out a bunch while I'm there. So I definitely do private events. And what we do is we do a private dinner from usually like 8 to 12 people, your family and friends. I custom tailor it to however you want it to be, whatever you want to talk about that night, if you want it casual or if you want it more formal and educational. And then wine tours. Once again, I just had this time and I've been talking to somebody and I'm setting up Vias for Vino wine tours in these wine regions. And so the best way to find out about that is to go to my website and sign up for the email list. You can either sign up on the bottom or there'll be pop-ups that'll ask. And I will make sure I'm blasting that out to my email list for these wine tours.
Yeah, awesome. What regions do you have in mind that you guys are considering?
Santa Barbara is going to be the first one.
Okay.
It's just one of my favorite California wine regions, and proximity-wise, it's also close. I would do it regardless of if it was close to me or not, because it is awesome up there. And then we're looking at Northern California, Sonoma, Napa, obviously. We're looking at Oregon, basically the places we've been on the episodes.
Yeah.
And then we're also looking at partnering. So there's these cruises, these wine cruises. AMA Waterways does them, and a couple other companies that we're partnering with. That essentially you book this cruise, and then I'm there hosting the cruise. We go out on excursions in these places, and it's all over the world. I mean, we're going to start in France. And there's one like all through the Loire Valley. There's one that's up the river in Bordeaux. So they're all over, and hopefully we'll get to do those. That'll be like next year. It'll be 2020.
That is so cool.
Yeah, these cruises are pretty cool.
Yeah, sign me up. I think that's super exciting. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So it's been the benefit of everything happening in the show, not being able to film, is I've been able to do some of these and focus on some of these other aspects of the business. Yeah,
and planning. Yeah, we definitely changed ours. We have adjusted our business quite a bit.
Yeah, we all had to.
It's cool because it's opened up a lot of, it's not cool what happened, but it's really neat that it's allowed some downtime for me to be really creative and just to try other avenues of things that have really come into place really nicely that I think are awesome.
Yeah, limitations spur the best innovation. It's the truth.
Yeah. There was, he was mentioning a few wine tips for those of you who go wine tasting. If you have never been before, or you're a starter, let's just say, and going wine tasting.
if you're under 5 years old and you have not been wine tasting,
like you're a newbie, okay? Always, I always recommend eating before you go, especially if you're consuming the wines. Don't go to your first winery at 10 and then go to lunch later. I always say only 2 to 3 a day. Don't try to hit like as many wineries as you can. You're not going to have as good of experience. I think it's really awesome to schedule them in at least 2 hours apart, plus whatever your commute time is. So if you're at one winery, give yourself 2 hours and then, at least a 30-minute window till you get to your next winery. So you have time to shop and enjoy and relax and walk around the vineyard.
Yeah, and wine country is usually not far from really, really beautiful scenery and landscape. So you can you pull off, have a picnic, check out the area. There's always other things to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Uber, or you can always get a driver. So, either one, do one of those to enjoy and plan your day, and then make reservations. I always think you're going to have a better experience. Sometimes for sure you can wing it and then they'll have openings, but it's really nice to make appointments so that you can walk in and have a spot and not be disappointed by having.
And if you're going in the next couple months, got to make reservations. They have to. Just the way, with the restrictions on social distancing and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to right now, but you should also the rest of the time, because you'll just have a better experience having it planned. Do you have a list of any, maybe in regions, if people are going to visit that, whatever wine country that they're going to, do you have a list of places that you recommend they visit available online or anything?
No, but I should do that, because I get asked it a lot, and I do it on an individual basis. People will DM me and say, "Oh, I'm going to this region. Give me a list." So that's actually a good call. Sign up for my email list once again, because I'm gonna put that together and do that, because I get that question all the time.
Alrighty, Vince. Can you please tell everyone where they can find you, your website, and how to sign up for your email newsletter?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you head to visforvino.com, visforvino.com, everything's on there. You can also, the show you can watch on the website, but if you prefer, it's on Amazon Prime and you can watch it there. I know some people like to watch it on the TV, so you can watch it there as well. You can sign up for my email list there. And I'm on all the social channels at V is for Vino as well, especially Instagram. And so I tend to interact with everybody. And I love hearing from people who are watching the show and their wine journeys and all of that. So, I appreciate you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. Those of you, when you watch the show, it's super helpful if you rate it. So just go on there and
you're the best.
Click the 5 stars. Make sure you give him a good rating on there, which I know you will, because you're going to love the show. But it's very helpful to leave the ratings, guys. The show
it is, and it costs you nothing. So that is so helpful.
Yeah, it is. Awesome. All righty. Well, thank you very much. We're so grateful that you came on today, and I'm sure everyone who's here, I hope you had a wonderful time listening today.